if you're not having sex with your partner or spouse, then your relationship ended the last time that you did. So now let's qualify that before you hate me. There are medical conditions. There are other kinds of relationships that are not sexual but intimate in other ways. There are aging people and people with diseases that make it so that they cannot engage in a sex life with their partner or spouse. I get that. That's not who I work with. I'm Linda K. Gifford. I am a CSA survivor myself, and I became an NLP in the last few years after 24 years of my own therapy and work to learn how I was affected by being groomed and raped for 7 years of my childhood, adolescence, teens. And I didn't even know I had a problem. And when I look back, it's like, oh my God, what a wreck, what a mess I was. And I've been working with people, wrote a book, Self-Talk, My Continuing Efforts to Survive Childhood Sexual Grooming and Assault, and a workshop program. But now, this is number 2 episode of Those Nasty Women Talk, and sponsored by Sweet Survivor. And my God, I am just sick of what people have done to marriage. I mean, I guess it's been this way for a very long time. I think we'd have to go back to the Paleolithic days to find true marriage, which is 2 people together because they feel bonded and want to be for however long. I am a big believer in bonded relationships, but what I see and what I work with are people, especially, and this is a huge amount of people, whether they know it or not. So many women and men have CPTSD from first sexual experiences being very negative, being negative childhood sexual experiences. And it's, hang on, I want to get that off the screen there now. We have to unravel it so you understand why. Because one thing that I've seen take down countless, multiple relationships in my lifetime is one partner wants to have an intimate sexual, they want to have sex straight up. They don't want cheap sex. They don't want to cheat. They want a real bonded relationship with their partner, and their partner has shut down. Their partner is no longer interested in sex. And this is where, on an NLP level, I work with people with CPTSD, and I try to help them understand why and how they shut down. And I encourage you to go look at those videos on YouTube about that. But that's not what we're talking about today. This is Those Nasty Women Talk. And today I want to tell you, women, even if you are like me and you are a CSA survivor, that sex is a normal part of life. I don't care how many kids you have. I don't care how many jobs you have. If your partner is someone you actually love, then don't expect them to live a life of just providing. This idea, this like Catholic idea that sex is for procreation. I mean, at least Islam is like all about the joy part. Sex is good. Sex is fun. You're supposed to have a lot of it. Just, you're supposed to make, in Islam, they talk about making your female partner experience orgasms, essentially. In the West, it's like, shut up unless you're having kids. And the thing is, even though most of us don't believe that, that whole philosophy, mindset, cultural orientation is set to, at the point that someone changes and they no longer really care about having sex, it's all about the kids, it's all about the whatever, then they try to tell you love is different now. Love is changed now. They tell you, this is what, mostly men, but also women. Sometimes it's the man that withdraws. CPTSD is not sex specific, it is not gender specific, and it is not sexual orientation specific. So while generally speaking, it's the men, I have found I talk to more men work with more men than women, because the women don't even know they have a problem. They just think they love their husbands. And then they start transferring, they start blaming their husbands. Their husbands are distant, their husbands are absent. It's like, well, if you're not giving in the relationship, then you're not there's no reason to stay. I am a woman, I'm not just talking about men. I wouldn't stay a month with someone who didn't want to have sex with me until and unless it wasn't possible for us. And my husband and I, what will keep us together forever is we have already got this phenomenal sex life. And if at some point it can't happen, we've got that memory, we've still got that intimacy. So if you are at the point in your relationship, say you're an older person or somebody medically challenged or something, and actual sexual intercourse isn't part of your thing anymore, fine, substitute intimacy for sex. But at the point you don't want to touch your partner and you're sleeping in the other room and you're making excuses and you're blaming it on them, then you've got a problem and you need to own up to it and you need to get help. I found out that I had a problem. I was married and divorced 3 times before I figured out maybe I had something to do with this. And while I'm glad that I'm not with the partners that I divorced, I also respect the fact that they didn't have a chance because I wasn't bringing my authentic self. And something that has happened so much, I mean, so many women and men have had their first sexual experience be something negative, something that was unwanted. So at the first feeling, this is for partners, this is for the healthy partner that's been shut out. And this is assuming you still love each other and you actually would like to have a relationship. And this is for the partner who is shutting out the other one. Your sexual health is important. I mean, statistically speaking, a man who is not having sex regularly has a 60% higher chance of prostate cancer. 60% higher chance. Do you want to do that to the person you say you love? And I'm sure that this spills over into all the unresearched things like women, because we don't do research on women, do we? Men's sexual health seems to be more important, but that's because even women don't seem to understand that they have a sexual health. They deserve sexual health too. And if you don't feel like having sex, don't blame it on the kids and don't blame it on the job and don't blame it on the partner. You can change partners. You can change jobs. You're stuck with the kids. But I found that to be a beautiful blessing. And I wish I could have shown them a healthy relationship because I went the other way. After my 3rd divorce, when my 3rd son was just months old, an infant, it took 5 years for the divorce. But like I said, a marriage is over when it's over. And don't think a piece of paper is when it's over. It's over when you stop caring about the other person physically too. When it turns into, what can you do for me? So I think a lot of people are just too goddamn tired. Pardon my language, too damn tired. And something about sex is that you have to start touching each other to feel sexual sometimes. So while it sounds cold and scheduling in sex, you hear that, but nobody ever does it, right? Date night is one example of maybe scheduling sex, if that's what you need to do. But it works in the sense that once you start to touch each other in sexually intimate ways, your body parts are going to wake up and you're going to want to have sex. And then the orgasmic experience is going to make the rest of your life so much better, improve your health and your partner's health. And this is something that you cannot deprive someone of and expect them to give you love and loyalty. What I've seen across the board, though, is, like I said, mostly men, but these partners, they still love their wives intensely. But goddamn, they've got to have some physical intimacy. We're wired to do that thing, even after we have children. And women, I hear this way too much. I hear from women that I've got it wrong and that women aren't interested in sex after they have children. I hear this from other women. And I'm like, then you have a problem. then you haven't had good sex. Maybe you're not orgasmic. Maybe you have CPTSD and don't know it. Maybe your first sexual experiences were negative, and now when you really want to be in a sexual experience with someone, you've shut down, and that happened early on, but you went on and did it because you know sex is part of life. This is me speaking as someone who was groomed and raped for so many years that by the time that I would feel anything for anyone, then I immediately go into shutdown mode and we become performance artists. And I think that a lot of men and women, but mostly women, have become performance artists in the sexual realm and they don't even realize it. I don't know hardly any other women that think orgasms are a normal part of life outside of vibrators. Like the more sophisticated, let's say, 80% of women say they have never had an orgasm with a human being. And only 20% of those have had an orgasm with a vibrator. And that is disgusting. People are supposed to bond with each other. And if you don't have that, back to the top of this, don't hijack marriage. So we talk all the time about how men commoditize women. And I founded Sweet Survivor, and I am working to build Sweet Hero action teams, and with the goal of busting even more people, helping Thorn by reporting to them. Thorn has already busted over 2,000 sex traffickers and brought home over 6,000, and that's an old number. It's significantly higher now. I just don't want to quote something I haven't seen in print. You've got to tell people when you see something going on. We talked all about that yesterday, so I'm going to skip that and get back to your sexual health is important, and so is your partner's. And everyone has the right to expect sexual pleasure, and everyone has the right to expect orgasmic sex with their partner, and everyone has the right to have a partner who cares about them on that level. And if you don't, before you throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, examine yourself. Before you get that divorce, before you blame it on your partner, look at yourself. Was your first sexual experience what you wanted? Or were you coerced, forced, or you feel disgusted by it for some reason, whether it was your own choice or not? Because that makes a huge difference. It sets the stage for your feelings going into things from now on. Because if you have that guilt about feeling sexual pleasure, and if you're someone like me that was sexually stimulated all the way back to a 12-year-old, you're a human being. So part of it feels good and the other part of it is horrifying and disgusting. And you carry that into your relationships today, whether you know it or not. And if you're a partner, your partner's carrying that into the relationship today, whether they know it or not. So for you too, if you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, it's going to take some effort to reunify and remember why you got together in the first place. This is assuming the best, assuming that you're with someone you wanted to marry, they wanted to marry you, you initially had this huge attraction, and now it's just gone, right? You don't have to throw it out, but you do have to wake up to each other's humanity and needs, and you do have to understand that it's not just about, orgasms are good, they feel good. It's about one thing, they're not possible, in my experience, without a partner you've been with for a long time and years in, for at least for women. Men can just blow it with anybody and then regret it, whatever. Sorry to be so crass, but, again, there's mechanics of it all. For a woman, you need that bond. And for a CPTSD survivor, you have to learn to open up the pathway to that bond. So I encourage you to go back to my YouTube channel and go through the Spades program. Just start it. Yes, I'm going to organize it better so that you can do that, like this weekend. Thank you for joining me. Don't hijack marriage. Let me finalize with, if you don't like your partner anymore, and all you like is their insurance and the fact they're keeping a roof over your head, then you need to put on your big girl or boy pants and get the hell out. and take care of yourself. Alimony is archaic, and I am disgusted. As many male friends as I have, most of them, my male friends aren't abusive people. So the ones that have relationships that fell apart are pretty much exclusively in a relationship where their spouse didn't want them physically anymore. And it just became unbearable, And so then they lose half of everything they worked for, half of their property, half of everything, because you're married and you're the bad guy because you don't want a marriage without sex. And it's like, this is sad. This is ridiculous. Women and some men who have been traumatized, wake up. You don't need to lose everything good because of a sexual disconnect. But you do need to find the connect, because it's very important. It's very important. Those nasty women talk. I will think of the next most uncomfortable thing I can think of and talk to you about it next week. In the meantime, I'm going to be loading the Survive in Spades workshop program to podcast as fast as I can get them up there over the weekend and next week. So, talk. Use your outside voices, okay? Linda K. Gifford, CSA survivor, NLP, specializing in CPTSD and relational sexuality. I don't want to talk to people just fucking around, pardon me, just messing around. I want to talk to people who really want a healthy relationship, either with who they have or without who they have or with somebody. And so if you can't, never pretend for somebody you don't want to be with, right? Don't be anything for someone you don't want. But you need to learn to be everything to the person that you do. Because only when you are receiving can you give, and only when you are giving can you receive. And that thing is supposed to be swirling around like an infinity symbol. That's what a relationship is supposed to be. So make it right. Make it right. Make it so. I'll talk to you next week. Probably sooner, actually. Bye. Yes, I'm sure I want to end the stream.